Welcome back. The federal government marked the 2024 Democracy Day via a colorful ceremony at the Eagle Square in Abuja. The event, which was attended by senior government officials, including members of the diplomatic community, saw officials present. Now, they, of course, commended the sacrifices of the nation's past heroes. This morning, we have a report by News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu.
It's 25 years of unbroken democracy in Nigeria. Nigeria's political elite and members of the diplomatic community marked the celebration at a colorful parade at the Eagle Square in Abuja.
Your Excellency.
Shortly after the arrival of the president, he inspected the parade and the change of guard ceremony.
At the university and won an outstanding student award and also bagged a certificate of merit in accounting and finance.
There was also a dance display by the national troupe celebrating the various ethnic groups in the country. Some government officials present say that while the day presents much significance in the country, Nigeria has achieved much progress.
Our expectation is that Nigeria's democracy will grow stronger and stronger and afford more opportunities to everybody, irrespective of your status, tribe, or religion.
The president was very clear in his speech earlier today and was very explicit. It's about understanding the sacrifices of our heroes past and seeing that as a foundation upon which we can erect a sustainable developmental future for Nigeria.
What we have accomplished to get our act in education to produce us what will give us a qualitative education. And what we have worked in the last 1 year, I assure you that it will give us the quality education we desired. So I'm assuring Nigeria will have a qualitative education back with character, knowledge and skills.
Nigeria's Minister of Solid Minerals reflects on the sacrifices made by the nation's past heroes.
These lessons is that the ideals that we encapsulated in the Farewell to Poverty, which was the title of the manifesto of June 12. I was part of the team that crafted that manifesto in 1993. The ideals espoused in that manifesto is what this current government, led by the president, who was an integral part of it, is implementing. Now, my message to Nigerians is that there is no way you can make an omelette without breaking eggs. You cannot restructure a wobbled, distorted, convoluted economy for decades without its attendant pains and associated hardship. But it is temporary. The hardship is temporary. If we are able to persevere, be consistent with the courage and knowledge that after the gestation period of these policies, the results will begin to manifest.
Very inspiring words out there from the well-wishers of Nigeria. It is hoped that these words of advice will make Nigeria to continue to fight for the sustenance of democracy in the country. In Abuja for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel Bagudu, for that report, and we would be, of course, continually honoring the memories of the heroes past and those who have fought for our democracy. The president did start off by honoring them in his speech yesterday. And we hope that beyond mentioning their names, that we uphold the democracy that they had hoped that Nigeria will be running. Now, moving away from that, according to the National Pension Commission's, that's PENCOM 2024 first quarter report, 8,702 retirement savings account RSA holders applied to assess 25% of their RSA balances due to temporary loss of employment. PENCOM has approved the disbursement of 14.2 billion naira to 8,651 Nigerians who experienced temporary job loss in the first quarter of 2024. Nigeria's high unemployment rate, inflation, and volatile economic conditions have contributed to financial instability and increase in job loss.
The applicants included 8,167 individuals from the private sector and 484 from the public sector. Now, of these applications, 8,651 were approved, while 51 were rejected, as the applicants were above 50 years of age. Joining us to discuss this is finance expert Bolahon Olojide. Good morning, and thanks for joining us, Mr. Olojide.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Not very, often that we talk, about the pensions fund and, the idea of people even going to, to withdraw money from their pensions funds, But I think it paints a picture of how desperate a couple of these people are. So let's first of all talk about the current unemployment rate, 2024, and projections for this year. Does it look like it will improve?
The seasons are very tough. It's not likely that we will see any dramatic growth in employment. As a matter of fact, most likely there might be some slump in employment numbers for this year. But as things improve, because it's a season and it gets better over time, we expect that as things improve over time, those numbers will start to come again. But right now, it doesn't look as if the employment numbers are good to go. Most likely they will be declining.
So help us clarify, because I remember not long ago the NBS, did a remodification of the analytics for rating Nigeria's unemployment rate. So
yes,
tell us about that. And what's the current statistics?
What is unemployment?
Yes.
That does not really take away the problem. When you look all around us today, what we have seen is that performances of corporates have not been good. The manufacturing sector is not doing very well. The currency volatility has affected a lot of businesses. So definitely, in that kind of a scenario, we cannot expect job growth. But that is not also going to be a permanent thing. So over time, it's expected that things will change. Changing how you calculate unemployment and things like that does not create employment. Those are just numbers. But if you really want to measure unemployment right now, even after we have changed how we calculate it, then let us see what are the numbers quarter on quarter, say over the last 4 quarters. That will be revealing, irrespective of how you choose to calculate it.
All right. What would you say would be the projection for the rest of the year? We've just gotten to the first half. Analysts, I'll come to talk about the impact of inflation much later. But analysts, when talking about inflation, told us that we'll see that things start to pick up by Q3. Do we have such projections for the unemployment rate for this year?
Once things start to pick up, employment numbers will also pick up. I think the rate of inflation seems to have declined month on month. The rate at which it is increasing appears to be slowing down. It is still increasing, but the rate of increase appears to be slowing down. There was this leaked memo from the government, which government said, oh, that is not an official communication. I saw that memo, and some of the content of that memo, if we can implement it, it will help to slow down inflation tremendously, because those items in that memo are more or less like a fiscal complement to the effort being made on the monetary side of things. The effort being made on the monetary side of things are not going to be enough to make the inflation curve to inflate early enough. But if we complement that with a robust intervention from the fiscal side, for example, on the food side of things, if you take our inflation curve today, you will see the role that food is playing in that figure, in that inflation problem that we have. So an intervention that will go into the food space and address it such that my disposable income, the amount I spent on food, maybe which has risen to 75% of my total income, can come down to 40% and then put more money in my hands to do a lot more. Those are the kind of things that will inflect the inflation curve. And once that start to happen, it will reflect in the performance of the corporations, and employment will also follow through in that same line.
All right. Can you also speak about, the news report, it says, that more than 8,000 people made requests, to get 25% of their pension funds, about 14.2 billion naira in total. Tell us, what that means for a nation like ours, Does that show a level of desperation, among citizens? Or does it paint a different picture?
Well, the people, because there are certain standards that are set before you can access that form. And one of it is that you lost your job and you've not gotten another job within a certain period of time. What is missing in that report, however, is that it would have been nice to say this were how many people accessed that same fund in the preceding quarter, in the one before that, compare like 3 or 4 quarters, and they will.
Mr. Olujide, are you still connected with us? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Okay, maybe more people.
All right, connection, of course, seems to have...
Who are, but I didn't see any comparison in that report. However, what is clear is that people are accessing those funds. A comparison will bring out whether it is more or whether it is less. If more people are losing their jobs and are not able to get a replacement job over a period of 3 months, they can apply. And when they apply, it will definitely increase the number of people that are accessing it. A good part to that, though, is to say that the fund is achieving the purpose for which it was set up. It is, I have assessed it before, sometimes in 2017. I accessed 25% of my contribution. And so it tests that 8,000 plus people wanted 25% of their money. They were able to approve it and grant the money. It shows that the fund is achieving what it is meant to achieve, to stabilize people in those seasons that are tough for them. But I would like to see more details to be able to compare whether this quarter was better than the previous quarter, which could be a reflection of the fact that more people got into unemployment during the current season.
I mean, it's very scary to see what the numbers are saying, because it's also reflecting a great challenge that we're having with regards to job loss. The numbers are showing that the majority are from the private sector. I wanted to just quickly quote. It said that we had 8,167 individuals from the private sector and 484 from the public sector. Does the number, does this reflect anything? I'm asking because the minimum wage and the arguments for and against the minimum wage have been a lot. And some would say that whilst they are canvassing for the minimum wage to be increased, the majority of people who this will impact are not in the public sector. So is there any way that, this affects affects those who are withdrawing from the pension scheme? Does this tell a story, a deeper story that we need to see?
Yes, in a way it does. It's important to note that jobs in the public sector are relatively more secure than in the private sector. The public sector is not driven by profits. So the issue of I made losses last year, therefore I cannot sustain this number of staff, does not arise in the public sector. Contrarily, in the private sector, if the business is not doing well, then it will revise a lot of things. And one of the things that it will review and revise is the staff cost. So it could lead to, people being asked to go if the business is not able to cope with the cost profile. So we are always going to have more people from the private sector than in the public sector because of the nature of the job security in those two areas. The minimum wage matter that you mentioned is something that is focused, it appears.
All right, Mr. Olujide.
As if it is focused. It appears as if it is focused only on the private, on the public sector. But in the real sense, even the private sector that employ up to 50 people or more than 50 people are compelled under the law to also, apply the same rule of that that comes out from those discussions. You must pay minimum wage. Even those who employ less than that will still feel the pressure, because the the staff that are in those employments will also look up to their employer to say, look, something has changed in the atmosphere as far as the reward is concerned. They look up to those employers to also do the same thing. And where they don't do it, it creates a pressure on whether I will feel happy as an employee or not. If I'm unhappy, it will affect my performance at the job. I could treat customers in a different way, or I could even start to steal because I believe I'm justified. The people in the public sector are getting more money. The people in big businesses that employ more than 50 people are getting more money. Why am I not getting more money?
Yeah.
To even further complicate matters, when the more money comes into place, there will be further inflationary pressure. In fact, within that same month, I can assure you that some rents are going to be increased when that is finally announced. Now, when landlords increase rent, they will not increase it just for the people who benefited from increase in minimum wage. They will increase it across all their tenants. So it's a fairly complex place that we must navigate very carefully.
All right.
All right.
Now, talking about this, the disbursement of pension funds, even though we can say it's been quite helpful, and like you said, it's doing what it's meant to do, it highlights further that there is a problem with job loss, and we certainly need stronger policies to create job opportunities. Looking at how we've come, we've just celebrated Democracy Day yesterday. There's a certain mood that Nigerians have been. The spirit hasn't been as high for some, and some others are very optimistic about the future. In the nearest future, what would you say are some of the moves that we need to make urgently to be able to ensure that we create more opportunities for the average worker?
I think we need to deal with two major issues, the inflation problem and currency volatility. When I looked, anybody who looked at the manufacturing companies and all the big losses that are being posted, when you look at those financials, you see that all these businesses, all of them, made money from their operations. They lost money by virtue of volatility of the currency. So revenue less normal cost, it is profit for literally all of them. MBL, Nestle, everybody. They made money from their normal operation, but they lost money by virtue of currency volatility. So we must deal with issues of currency volatility so that businesses can plan, and we can also, stabilize the economy, as it were. Number two, inflation. The inflation curve has been has been up towards the north for quite a long time. We must get that inflation curve to turn around. We must get it to inflect and start to go down. If we're able to achieve these two things, the economic fortunes will turn around. I'm not saying those things are easier. They are plain vanilla, but they are doable. Government itself must show sacrifice so that people can see that you're making sacrifices, and that it has a way of encouraging people and giving them hope that things will indeed change.
All right, Mr.
Then issues, measures must complement monetary to help drive the economy in the right direction.
All right, quickly, I just want you to speak on the fate of those who don't even receive pensions. There's companies, of course, and I know that it is against the Pensions Act. There's companies that don't pay pensions, or don't remit pensions, rather. So what is the fate of those ones? And then also, the story says they took 25%. Can you clarify what happens to the other 75%?
The other 75% is still invested in the fund on their behalf. It is believed that whatever unemployment issues the person has right now is temporary. So which is why they said, if you have been employed for this number of months, you can access 25%. The balance is there for you. Then the other part about people who are not entitled to pension, employees must ensure that their employers are doing the right thing as far as remitting. But it is a law. They are compelled to do it. And where they're not doing it, they can even make a report on, to the necessary authorities to compel them to do the right thing. The Pension Act is clear. about what you need to do as far as pension of the employee is concerned. In fact, what we have seen is that some organizations, in addition to PenCon, even set up an additional pension fund, that they for their staff to complement what the law has prescribed. This is the way to go. And if your employer is not doing it, you owe a duty to yourself to make noise and ensure that it is done on your behalf. Otherwise, then your fate lies in your own hand to create your own pension fund.
Absolutely. Bolahan Olojide, thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's seemingly gloomy economic pictures across Nigeria, but we of course will continue to follow and see where this leads. Thanks for your time. We'll speak with you again pretty soon.